Hello, it's Judy, and here I am hunkered down because I'm at high risk and I don't want to die, and it feels like a very unstable place to be. So I find stability in my relationships with family and friends, on Facebook, by telephone and email and text messaging, and most of all, with my higher power. And although it may sound cheesy, I really believe that if I just give the universe enough time and space and hunker down for long enough and let go and let God, that the scientists will find a vaccine and tests and treatments and all the things that I personally need to feel safe enough to go back outside and play.
Never really wanted to have a family in my life. For me, family was all about abuse and neglect and disinterest. And so when I stumbled upon having my own family, it wasn't an intention. My number one goal was not to follow in the crooked footsteps of my parents and or treating your spouse like my parents treated each other. And now that I have a family, I can't think of anything more important. Being stuck with each other 24/7, all kinds of Zoom meetings and Zoom schools and all these things that were not a part of our life several months ago has just solidified in me the idea that there's nothing more important to me than my family. Nothing. I can't think of one thing, and I'm a pretty imaginative guy, where my family is not front and center. And it took a freaking Bird Box come 12 Monkeys virus for me to actually realize that and to really understand what that means in my bones. My family is the most important thing.
I think I've become so much more frugal. I didn't notice how kind of wasteful I was before. Things like getting a cup of coffee every day, and now making coffee for myself, realizing that it's an expense that I really didn't need, and just kind of noticing things like that a little bit more, being a little more thoughtful. I've been so much more thoughtful with how I do things, not being wasteful, stretching things out a little bit more. And it's been really eye-opening. And one thing that I've kind of been saying to myself is nothing changes if nothing changes. And there have been a lot of changes, and that's kind of what I've noticed most about myself.
Hi, welcome to New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm standing on the corner of world famous Bourbon Street, and this is it. It's dead. Ever since COVID-19 kicked in, the whole area has been under stay-at-home mandates. In a town like New Orleans, that's really hard to swallow because it's a hospitality town. Everything from Mardi Gras to the local crawfish boil. What happens next? Just now we've begun to open up. People are starting to get back out. It's going to take some time. How will towns like New Orleans fare, where it's really reliant on tourists, on hospitality? Only time is going to tell. We don't know. But what we do know is that we're going to rise up and we're going to do the best that we can. Hope you're all safe, and God bless you from New Orleans, Louisiana.
I consider myself extremely blessed that I get to go through this with my mother, my sister, my 70-year-old niece, and my 1-year-old niece. Family means everything to me, and I couldn't have picked a better quarantine than these girls. You know, not a lot of people have this opportunity to be so close to their family and loved ones. So I'm cherishing every second of it. Currently, none of us are working at the moment, but the girls have been keeping us really busy, and I look forward to each day because of them. Just as we've had our good moments, we've had some bad moments, which have made our bond so much stronger than it was before. I love my family, and I'm very lucky to be so close to them during this time.
I cannot wait to get back into that theater. I cannot wait to see a live performance and see true storytelling. Don't get me wrong, I love film and television, but there's nothing like going to the theater and watching actors perform on stage. Taking that ride with complete strangers, I miss that so incredibly much, and I cannot wait to get back to that.
The CDC, that's the most helpful site with the most helpful information. As far as our administration, Dr. Anthony Fauci is the guiding light in the chaos that is the Trump administration. So when he gives a briefing, I feel that we can trust it. As far as news, we're in a very odd time for American media, and that's because Trump has cultivated what he calls fake news, and it's created a mindset that basically it's stymied debate. So if news is reported, instead of people going, wait, I don't agree with what you're saying, they just say, no, you're lying to me, this is fake. So it's a very interesting time for media because there's a great mistrust of media, and you find that media, instead of reporting facts, are just kind of talking to their bases. I tend to follow The Guardian. It's not an American paper, and so I feel like it's got a little bit more of a third perspective and makes me a little more comfortable, and I think they've been doing some top-notch reporting.
Man, we are living in some scary times with this COVID stuff. I tell you what, COVID is really forcing me to change the way I do business. I'm an entertainer, and I'm a magician. I'm a sideshow performer. During the Halloween season, I'm a scare actor for popular Halloween haunted attractions. And nowadays, you can't get 6 feet from people, and my entire business is built on performing for live audiences. So, nowadays, if you're an entertainer like me, you're performing online somewhere, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Zoom meetings. And if you're not performing online, then you're not working. And that's scary because streaming and online performances is a completely different skill set. It's a completely different set of equipment. There's a learning curve. And unless you're able to adapt to the changes, you run the risk of being phased out. Like I said, man, this is some scary, scary times that we're living in.
So this is not just a photo op, but it seems and it feels like the world is burning and there's a virus out there that's ravaging our bodies, and now we are killing each other out in the streets. It's like that's the killing fields now. And me as an immigrant, I have a heart for all those kids in cages as well. So when I'm feeling so overwhelmed and so distressed and so alone and insignificant, I have turned to faith. Because that's the only thing I have. My girlfriend and I, we've been studying the Bible, and let me share with you a couple of verses that resonate deeply with me when I'm feeling so insignificant and human. The first one is Joshua 1:9. The Lord says, I command you to be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord is with you wherever you go. And the other one is Jeremiah 29:11, one of my favorites. For I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not disaster, to give you a future and a hope. Thank you.
I think the only thing I really miss during this quarantine, besides a sense of normalcy, is being close to other human beings. I think it all really comes down to that for me. I live by myself, and I can't have friends over, and I can't go to my family's homes. And I really miss I just miss the proximity of other humans. And it seems strange because I've never thought about that before. But having to keep such a distance all the time from other people feels lonely. It feels not right. It doesn't work for my mammalian nature. In the meantime, I do have these guys, which is pretty, not too shabby. But I look forward to hugging my friends and family again, for sure.
An acquaintance came up to me yesterday and used the N-word. Now, all I can figure is he thought he would be safe using that word because I'm an old white man, a seventh generation Texan, and I own a business. But an acquaintance of mine came up and used the N-word yesterday. This was after George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, etc., 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 and for what seems like forever. I was in his face immediately, and he denied being a racist, though he had just used the N-word with me. You know, I thought we had put most of the issues behind us concerning racism before Obama was elected. I naively believed that. I supported Obama in Waco, Texas, and I lost friends, I lost business, and found out how naive I was. But I had an acquaintance yesterday who came up to me and used the N-word, mainly because I'm an old white guy. We have a long, long way to go. And I realize now we're not going to reach that in my lifetime, but we got to make an effort. I used to enjoy absurd things. They were comic to me, but now everything seems absurd, absurdly horrible. And I'm not laughing.
A lot of my quarantine dreams have taken place in these sort of urban, modernized tribal villages. And I don't know if that's where we're headed, but I do know my favorite phrase during this time has been, "It took pandemic." We've known for a long time that our way of life is unsustainable and that it's damaging to our environment. And we've been taking all these little baby steps trying to heal ourselves and change our ways, but it's too slow, and the planet is too sick, and our communities are suffering too much for the baby steps. And so it took a pandemic for us to be put in our place, and most of us have been stuck at home. So it's been a time to come back to humbleness, come back to essential. What is essential? Come back to homesteading, come back to boredom. The modern world doesn't know boredom. And so when we tire of social media and Netflix and all of that, what are we left with? What happens in our minds? Do we even like the people that we are when all of that stuff is gone? And so, among other things, I've been optimistic from the beginning of this, past my paranoia and fear phase. But I've been optimistic because of how much has been exposed and how quickly we were as a people able to come together through social media and with memes, just to figure out how we collectively felt and how we were going to respond to it. You know, we learned vocabulary words really quickly, like essential workers and flatten the curve. None of us had heard of flatten the curve before, but the moment we heard it, we understood it, and we were like, hey, that's our plan. We're united in this. And you know, it was exposed what we've already known, which is that the government doesn't care about us unless there's a profit in there for them. But it's exposed how strongly we can come together as a people and figure out what we really want and figure out what kind of society we want for ourselves. And now we have nothing to do but protest in the streets. And I know in the beginning there was sort of questioning and a lot of people kind of proposing whether or not we were going to let this new way of life of slowing down and taking things at our own pace continue after COVID, after we have it under control, or if we're going to just sort of revert back to our previous ways. And I don't think we can anymore. I don't think there is any going back. I think we've seen how the government is ready to betray us and not not take care of us when we need them most. And then we've seen how many resources and how quickly they're ready to respond to peaceful protesters in the streets, and make up a narrative of it being a war. It's just insane. But I think that the people, you know, we're smarter than ever, we're more focused than ever, and there's a conversation happening on a global scale right now that we've never experienced. I've certainly never experienced in my lifetime, and I'm excited about it.
I guess the thing that I miss the most is touching, and most specifically, I miss touching our oldest son's face, because he doesn't live with us anymore. So I just want to touch his face. And we recently finished watching Transparent. We were very behind. And what most people don't realize is the show is not about what you think it's about. It's actually about people touching. They touch everything in that show. They touch surfaces, they touch each other's faces, they touch everything is touching. So all I want to do is touch my oldest child's face. That's what I miss the most.
All I want to say, love each other, love your neighbors, love them the way that you want to be loved, respect them the way that you want to be respected. Right now, with everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter protests, with the senseless killing of innocent black people, reach out to your black friends, because right now, whether or not you don't think about it, they really need people there for them. Right now, silence speaks louder, and we can't keep seeing all of the systematic racism happen in this country. We're people too, so reach out, help us, help fight the systematic racism. Spread the love, don't spread hate.
When I go to sleep at night, I dream about my closest, most cherished, loved friends right in front of me, hanging out like we normally did before all of this happened. And I dream of hugging them and having sleepovers with them, going on trips. I dream of escaping. I dream of being with my bestest friends and just being close with them again.
The most important thing to me right now is general community health. I think it's important that everybody realizes that they are one piece of a much larger puzzle. I know, there's a lot of argument between opening up or sheltering in place, masks or no masks. I think that even if a mask only helps by 10%, it's still one of the more important things that we can do to try to help each other through this. It may or may not be as effective as any given group says, but it's worth trying. It's worth something. And I think if we could all embrace the idea of being compassionate to each other, we'd be able to go back to normal, or whatever new normal we have in front of us, sooner.
I guess throughout this whole ordeal, what I've found myself feeling is more anxious and less trusting of my fellow human beings. While I feel that people I know and whom I'm connected to on social media are responsible and taking the necessary precautions and protocols for safety and for regard for their fellow human beings, I have encountered and seen far more who are just not taking this seriously enough. And I think what has disappointed me the most and surprised me, and I'm not one who's easily surprised, is just the breadth of selfishness and disregard for each other as human beings. I'm not hopeful. I'm just trying to wait this out.
The most important thing that everyone should focus on right now is kindness. Now is the time for vulnerability. There is a lot of fear going around, which is only perpetuated by a lot of misinformation. So by all means, if you see someone sharing false information, correct them, but do it kindly. If you don't, they retreat, and you lose a potentially teachable moment. Right now, we have so many focusing on their personal wants instead of the collective need. If you have the means to donate, do so. If you have the means to pay for services, do so, but without receiving those services. Do it out of kindness. Do it to help your community. And you can help your community without necessarily donating. You can say thank you to the essential workers. You can reach out to the vulnerable members of the population and see if there's anything extra you can do to help make their life a little easier. We're all in a hard place right now, so be kind to yourself too. Give yourself some grace. You can only be kind to others when you're truly kind to yourself. People are by nature resilient. We will get through this, but we only get through this together. And the best way to band together is with kindness.
Corona 2020, here's the deal. I'm a 40-year actor down here in Orlando, Florida, the theme park capital of the world, doing 90-minute theatrical dinner shows. Now, of course, we're shut down, which we should be, because we entertain 3,000 or 4,000 kids a week, and we don't want to bring that home to anyone in our household, which brings me to my next point. My mom is 93 years old. She lives with me. I take care of her, and I don't want anything to happen to her, but I don't know what to do when I go back to work. That is a dilemma that an entertainer has never faced, and I'm having to think it through, and I don't know the answer. I want to thank the healthcare workers and all the first responders for everything they're doing to help us through this crisis. And America, just be strong. We'll get through this. We always have. We're a strong country and a strong people. Be safe, social distance. Cheers.
I'm a musician, and what I miss most is playing with other people. To me, that's what music is all about, with everybody coming together with their different ideas and creating something beautiful. It's really hard to put into words, but I can't wait to play with other people live again. I was asked to play a song, and this one pertains a message that we should all keep in mind during this crazy time. Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue. Remember, somewhere the sun is shining, and so the right thing to do is make it shine for you. A heart full of joy and gladness will always banish sadness and strife. So always look for the silver lining and try to find the sunny